After studying the concept and the value of historic buildings, we will discuss the last question of this chapter, the preservation of historic buildings in the present time and the significance of protecting them. Let's first look at the current state of historic buildings. You know that since the reform and the opening up, China's urbanization has developed rapidly. Let's look at a set of data. In 1950, 29% of the world's population was living in cities. By 2000, 47% of the world's population had moved to cities. The urban population of our country surpassed the rural population for the first time in 2011, and to this day, the urban population has greatly surpassed the rural population. In 2019, the urbanization rate has exceeded 60%. The massive influx of people and the corresponding surge in construction demand have boosted the scale and the pace of urban construction, making China the world's most magnificent construction site. What is the fate of historic buildings in the period of rapid development of urban construction? Let's first look at the present situation of historic buildings. With cities changing, the preservation of historic buildings is not very optimistic. First of all, the fate of being dismantled. Although local cities have issued a list of historical buildings to be protected successfully, compared with a large number of general historical buildings in the city, their stock is still large. A large number of leafy buildings which constitute the urban pattern and characteristics are demolished when they cannot be protected by law and conflict with modern urban planning, and the corresponding historical building environment is destroyed. Many of the poorly preserved high-level buildings are also doomed to demolition. For a while, a chart of short-lived buildings appeared. This picture was taken on April 28, 2011, at the scene of the explosion of the Liaoning Science and Technology Museum, a 23-year-old building that won the Luban Prize. Its content of steel bar is 150% of that of the ordinary buildings. Because of the high density of the shear walls and steel bars, the difficulty of demolition is far beyond expectations. As a result, the planned number of more than 1,200 explosive holes was forced to expand to 1,889. The reason for the demolition was that it impeded the new planning requirements of the site. The second reason is that some historical buildings cannot meet the function and social aesthetic requirements of the new era and have been reconstructed beyond recognition, losing the historical memory of the building itself, destroying the value information of history and culture that it should have transmitted, and therefore damaging the historic building. The picture shows the real situation of the existing 四合院 in Beijing. The 四合院 changed from one family to many families to live together. Each family has reconstructed the 四合院 to occupy more usable area and has been unable to see the characteristics of the residential houses in the north. The third kind of damage is that the historical building is built for a long time. Eroded by natural weathering, the structure, door and window components, and the external wall materials all have different degree of aging phenomenon. This is the present situation of the boiler room in Shenyang Aerospace in Xinguang Group, located in the eastern suburb of Shenyang, which has been abandoned. The last cause of destruction is the man-made destruction of historical buildings, such as armed conflicts, wars, revolutions, conquest activities, and arbitrary destruction. On April 15, 2019, Notre Dame's top-floor wooden tower was destroyed after a fire caused by human negligence in repairing construction. Notre Dame de Paris, completely in 1864 by Le Duc, a representative of the famed style restoration faction, was destroyed over 100 years after its establishment. Of course, with the stabilization of urbanization growth and the improvement of cognition, the government and the public began to pay attention to the problems related to the historical environment gradually. Many historical buildings were protected and even gained new life. Many excellent works of reconstruction and reuse have emerged in cities where historical buildings have been protected early, such as Shanghai and Shenzhen. In the picture, the Dashe building transformed the Minsheng Wharf into the main exhibition area in the 2017 Shanghai Space Art Season. This practice not only protects its value as industrial heritage, but also gives it new value and significance in the modern era. The above is the analysis of 4 current situations of historic buildings. Historical buildings are facing all these crises at present, and we mentioned in the previous section that they have so much value that they must be protected and sustained. Here we will learn the importance and preserving historical buildings. First, the preservation of historical buildings is the need of the crisis of city characteristics. A historical building is the product of a certain historical period, bearing the historical memory of a nation and a region. As an important part of human environment, once historical buildings disappear, the damage will be immeasurable and irreparable. Chinese cities are full of skyscrapers and cities are scrambling to build the tallest buildings. But if we are careful, we can see that the differences between cities are becoming smaller and smaller. Protecting historical buildings is protecting the city's characteristics and is the important way to solve the crisis of cities' characteristics. American architect Simon once said, "Let me look at your city and I know what your people are pursuing in culture." The city speaks of its culture through the architecture that she owns, and we need to preserve the historical buildings in order to preserve its historical and cultural values and create new values and meanings in the new era of social context. The second significance of protecting historical buildings is the need of sustainable development and intensive society. According to the statistics of relevant departments, 50% of global energy is consumed in the construction and use of buildings, and the destruction behavior of the cities of the demolition and the construction runs counter to the requirements of the sustainable and intensive society that China has always advocated. After years of research and practice, the protection reuse of historical buildings can prolong the survival life of buildings, which is one of the important ways of sustainable development of buildings. The third significance of protecting historical buildings is actual need for life and production. Most of the buildings of the traditional cultural relic protection sites have lost their function of use. while the large number of historical buildings scattered in the city are still in use. It is more economical and effective to reconstruct it and utilize them rationally than building new constructions of the same size. Even if some are abandoned and idle due to the transformation of urban industry, for example, many industrial heritage in Shenyang, which is based on the social demand and the demand of people today. To use them nationally is a way for the state to advocate people-oriented. The fourth significance of protecting historical buildings is the need for national ownership and identity. Most importantly, the preservation of historical buildings enhances national identity and identity. Historical buildings congeal excellent traditional culture and historical story, symbolizes a nation's brilliant artistic achievement. General Secretary Xi suggested that we should strengthen our cultural self-confidence and that the main material carrier of cultural self-confidence is to enrich the architectural cultural heritage. It is the mission and duty of our contemporary people to protect and continue historical buildings. All four of these needs are that we must preserve the city's vast historical and architectural heritage and rejuvenate it and help the city renew.